You think we have it bad here? Think about all those Texans. I mean, it was -2 in Dallas the other day. -2. 23 people have died. There are thousands without power. A lot have water problems and, food off the shelves, no bottled water to be found. And a lot of people are pointing to the frozen wind turbines. But is that the main source of the problem here? Is the governor of Texas?
Our wind and our solar got shut down, and they were collectively more than 10% of our power grid. And that thrust Texas into a situation where it was lacking power in a statewide basis.
What do you think, Scott Shalady? By the way, thank you for coming in today. Scott the Cow Guy is here in for Dan Croft.
This is what I think. Does anybody see? Okay, yeah, it's bad. Oh, wind and solar nationally are only 4% of our power.
And in Texas, it's 10%.
But see, here's my deal. Why are we shutting down things like the Keystone XL pipeline? Why can't we do things in parallel until they get up and running? Why does it have to be either or all the time? They shut down a lot of coal plants in Texas too.
Oh yeah.
So why do we have to do? Why does it have to be either or? Can't we bring up power? I mean, wind and solar while we're still using, fossil fuels? Why can't we do that? Why does it have to be all in on one and nothing on the other? I don't understand. Number two is this. Nobody saw this coming. All the big scientists, climate scientists out there didn't see it coming, but they want us to make changes today that are going to cost trillions of dollars because they see a 1 degree rise in the planet in 75 years from now.
Right, and the water level went up.
So apparently they can tell what's going to happen in 75 years better than they can tell what's going to happen next week. That's a joke.
Well, with more on this, let's welcome back to the program Bjorn Lomborg. I'm Swedish, I should say his name. Bjorn Lomborg. He's president of the Copenhagen Consensus think tank and author of False Alarm: How Climate Change Panic Cost Us Trillions, Hurt the Poor, and Fails to Fix the Planet. Good morning, Bjorn, and thanks for coming back on the program.
Hey, good morning, Amy.
Hi. So Scott and I are here. We were wondering, do you think, what are your take on what's going on in Texas?
Well, look, Texas has become a little bit like a Rorschach test. People are just seeing what they want to see. So very clearly, the fact that wind turbines was frozen was part of the problem, but another part of the problem was that the rest of the infrastructure didn't work very well. So, gas pipelines shut down, coal-fired power plants, nuclear power plants shut down as well. So I think this is not really a place where we can place blame squarely right now, but it shows us something that I think is much more important, namely what will happen. That was also what Scott was alluding to. What will happen when we start moving towards having a fossil-free energy grid, which is what Biden wants in 2035. If you mostly have sun, solar, and wind, when the sun is not shining or the wind is not blowing, you're going to have a big problem. And this is the kind of thing that happens when it's really hot or when it's really cold. You have lots and lots of power needs, but you don't have enough backup power. You don't have enough baseload power. And that is a real big problem. Of course, you can solve this, but it's going to cost you a lot.
So what is President Biden's climate fix?
I'm not sure there is an easy one. And if you also heard, Bill Gates just came out with a new book where he's pointing out in some ways, look, these claims that we're going to be able to fix this in 10 years are just not real. This is a long-term problem that's going to need a long-term solution. Right. Remember, if you go all renewable, you will have a lot of trouble when, for instance, you have this this very, very harsh cool in Texas, or when you have heat waves, which you have every year in California and elsewhere. You cannot run an economy just on solar and wind. You need some baseload power. Now, that could come from batteries, but just remember, right now, the U.S. have enough batteries to cover the U.S. electricity consumption for 14 seconds. So we're not talking about something that's a tiny fix. We're talking about having basically batteries for that could store for weeks or possibly even months or seasons. And that's just not there yet. So we need to recognize if we're going to fix this problem, it's not about just putting up lots of solar and wind and feel all virtuous. It's about making sure you get the innovation that makes these technologies so cheap everyone will want them, rather than having to be pushed on them.
That's the problem. and thanks for bringing up that point. A lot of psychologists talk about this too. When things are foisted upon you, or there's mandates that are made that you have to do this by a certain time, that doesn't work out as well as if things just naturally move in that direction, right? And it's a much more of a buy-in when that's the case, rather than the government coming in and saying, by 2035 we're going to be doing this, that, this, not thinking about what we're going to do with all these other engines that do need, a different type of fossil fuel power. And so I think that, hey, let the private sector make these electric cars look cooler. Everybody, myself included, wants cleaner air and cleaner water, and we'll slowly get there on our own and in the right way, which with a much bigger buy-in than when somebody comes over you and beats you over the head with a bat and says, no, you need to have a Toyota Prius tomorrow.
Yeah. And, of course, I think there's two other points that we continuously forget. One is that part of the solution that people are arguing for is to bring much more power onto the electricity grid. So you want all these electric cars, you want space heating and everything else, which of course is just going to drive up the consumption and make the problems even harder. The second point is, remember, this is not predominantly about the U.S. Even if the U.S. and every other rich country in the world stopped emitting CO2 tomorrow, which of course would be a terrible, that'd be Texas for you, but across the rich world, that's not going to happen. Even if they did, the climate model showed it would reduce temperatures by the end of the century by 0.7 degrees Fahrenheit. This is not what's going to solve the problem. It's about making sure that this is viable for China, for India, for Africa, for Latin America. And that's only going to happen if, as you point out, they make this much, much cheaper. That's all about innovation, not about mandates.
Well, how much do you think voters are willing to pay for these extravagant climate policies?
Well, there's a lot of surveys. There's one I love, which was not quite the intended outcome. Washington Post asked people how much they're willing to pay, and they basically said more than half of the U.S. population is not willing to pay $24 to fix the climate. And remember, Biden is talking about spending $1,500 per person per year in the U.S., so about $500 billion a year. That's just, that's not sustainable. You can't keep outspending voters in that on that level.
Right, and you know what? It's just gone from the Green New Deal to the Green New Steel, right? That's what it is. It's going to be coming out of all of our pockets for the Green New Steel. Oh, well, I mean, and you look what's happening to our pumps already. I mean, geez.
Oh, I know. Our gasoline prices, gas up now, folks, because it's already jumped almost $1.
Yeah, you can play the futures market by gassing up your car today.
But really, you can't do it too soon. What are prices like in Indiana right now?
Well, they've gone up by 50%, 50 cents. I mean, which is, we're 30 cents lower because we don't have the same taxes you do. But I mean, that's just
and now with the power outages in Texas,
another knock-on effect of all this. Yeah, is going to be.
Well, remember when Obama took office?
But I've said this.
It costs $75 to fill up my car, which it's normally $40.
So Bjorn, I talk about this all the time on other news channels, and there's one great way of getting money into the pockets of Americans once a week, guaranteed, maybe twice a week, and that's low energy costs, and that adds up over time. And if you make that 20-gallon tank, $1 a gallon cheaper, that's $20 a week you're putting back in the American pockets. And sometimes twice a week would be $40 a week, which could be up to $200 a month just by what you're putting in your tank. There's no other quicker way to get money into the pockets of Americans. And yet we go the opposite direction. So these government mandates, them beating us over the head because we got to be clean, is in my estimation not the right thing to do. I think we should let innovation take us there. And you're right, make things cheap. People get the picture, and they'll do it because they want to do it, not because they have to do it.
And also, it's important to recognize that if you want to get to carbon zero in 2050, which is what Biden is suggesting, the models indicate that you will actually have to raise taxes across everything, but just equivalent on gasoline to raising the prices of a gallon of gasoline about 25 cents per year for the next 29 years. Now, that you can probably do 1 or 2 years, but can you imagine doing that 29 years? No. You're going to pave the way for somebody who's going to say, look, I'm going to give you all the money back, and we're going to stop this. That's not the way to solve global warming. Right. It is through innovation.
All right, Bjorn Lomborg, president of the Copenhagen Consensus think tank and author of False Alarm. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Good to talk to you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Spills happen every day in your workplace, anywhere gasoline, diesel, machine, crude, or cooking oils are used. These spills not only disrupt workflow production, but are hazardous to employees and the public. You need a team that can come in and clean up that spill and get your crew back to work and remove the ugly, unsightly stains. You need Cabino Environmental Field Services, an environmental response team to the rescue. Using sustainable, all-natural green products, they mitigate the spills and extract the stain from the pavement. The only byproduct is the used oil absorbent that gets recycled as a fuel source. This is one of the most economical, sustainable, and green ways to manage an oil spill. For stains on your residential garage floor, patio around the barbecue, parking lot, or pavement around your fuel pumps, Cabino Environmental is available